Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, part 2 of our drill press table build.
Well, this is where we're at now, and everything is aligned really well. These tracks are nice and flush. I'm very happy with the way that they fit into those dados. I'm also happy with the way that the router table cut the dados. So where do we go from this point? This section of the table is pretty much complete. So at this point, I honestly think that it's time to move on to our fence.
Our fence build is going to begin with some 3/4 inch ply, and what we need is 2 pieces that are going to be 24 inches long and 3 inches wide. Well, this part of the fence is really nothing fancy, as it's just going to be a simple butt joint just like this. But what we're going to do is I need a cutout recess on this flat section at the back so that it can surround our drill press column. So the first thing we're going to do is put our upright of our fence off to the side and take our lower section and mark our center mark. Now all I'm going to do is right in the middle, I'm going to draw a 2-inch radius here, and we're leaving the slightest little tiny bit of material left at this one end. This 4-inch diameter cutout, or 2-inch radius, will mimic what we did in our table. And of course, once you get that circle drawn, we're just going to extend the lines of our outer edges to the back of our plate. And then we're going to take this over to the scroll saw and we're going to cut this out. Now be careful, it's going to be fragile at this point because of the little tiny bit of material. We've got about 1/8 of an inch left holding it here. Well, as you can see, this is extremely woogity. Yes, I said woogity. That's a word. Guys, you don't have to do this cutout if you don't want. You can just do a straight split fence here and cut it straight. I just like the circle. I think it looks better. So I'm lining this up here now, and what I want to do is we're going to cut a couple of angle pieces, and by a couple I mean 4, and they will be the same height as what we have left here. So with this being a 3-inch fence and 3/4 inch plywood, we'll have 2 1/4 inches, and they will come down in a perfect 45-degree angle, and they're just angle brackets to keep this thing aligned and to keep the fence square. The next thing I want to do is I want to cut a dado that will house another piece of T-track. And where I want that is right in the center of the upright of our fence. So I'm going to head over to the router table. I've already got it set up. I never changed the bit from when I made the table. So I'm going to route a 3/4 inch by 3/8 inch deep dado. And once you're happy with the way everything fits in your fence, we're just going to screw it in. I've drilled and countersunk holes every 2 inches, and I'm going to use some number 4 by 1/2 inch screws and screw this T-track in place on our fence upright. Well, it's now time to glue our fence together, and this isn't exactly rocket science. We're just going to glue our lower section onto the back of our upright of our fence, and then to assist us in keeping this whole thing square, we're going to put our angles that we cut, one flush at each end and then one just outside of our center cutout for our column of our drill press. We're going to glue it, clamp it all up, and set it aside.
Now I've got some butcher's freezer paper here, which keeps everything from sticking to the bench. It also keeps the mess off of your bench. So if you're like me and like to keep your bench clean, a little bit of freezer paper will help you out. You really want to be careful with your glue up here, because don't forget, this fence is what's going to be square. This is what's going to help you do all of your square drilling for your projects. So you'll want to ensure, using a trusted square that you have in your shop, that everything is lining up correctly. And of course, these little brackets are going to help you do that as well. Now double check everything that it is square and let it sit and dry. There's nothing more you can do with this for now. Well, the glue is all dried up on our fence and I've given it a good sanding all over. You don't want to go crazy. You don't want to wear through this thin ply. It's now time to attach it to our drill press table. And if you remember, we put our tracks at 3 inches in from the edge on each side of our drill press table, and that means that we will require a hole in the middle of our flat back piece here that is 3 3/8 of an inch in from each end and centered on this 3-inch piece, and that will put you into the middle of the T-track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill an oversized hole here, and I'm going to drill it at 3/8 of an inch in diameter. Well, this next step is completely optional and it depends on your setup, and you'll understand why I'm doing it in just a bit. But what I want is a hole centered front to back on here and roughly, and I mean roughly, 2 1/4 inches from one of our uprights. And that will sit it roughly centered between this 3/8 hole that we just drilled and our upright. I mean, it's not that important, but what we're going to do is we're going to drill a Forstner bit hole here. I'm going to check my magnet stock. I'm thinking 1/2 inch, so we will drill a 1/2 inch Forstner bit hole, and we are going to use CA glue and glue in a rare earth magnet, 1/2 inch diameter. And a little drop of CA to hold that magnet in. And we'll let that set up. And what's the magnet for? Let's get this mounted to the table and then we'll talk about that. Well, it's now time to add some hardware. And we're looking at the bottom of our fence here. And what I have is a 1/4 20 thread with a 1-inch long bolt jig knob, and we're just going to add a washer, go through the 3/8 hole that we drilled, and then we're going to install one of these. And what this is a T-nut, and this will live in or slide very easily in those T-tracks that we installed on our table. So now that we have the hardware installed on here, let's take it over to the drill press and see how it mounts. And with the hardware installed, we just align our T-nuts with the tracks that we installed, and our fence will just slide into place wherever we want it to go. And once you're happy with where it is, it's just a matter of giving the jig knobs just a little tighten. You don't have to crank them, and that is rock solid on there. I mean, I'll knock the drill press over before I move the table. And because we've placed the recess into the back end here, our fence can go all the way back to our column. So we're only losing that thickness of the plywood, and we can still tighten it down there and do as we please with it. So what about that rare earth magnet? Well, that's what comes next. Well, one of the reasons for the T-track in my fence is because I purchased this little, well, it's a stop is what it is. And it rides in this T-track just like this, and you can place it where you want, and then it takes an Allen key to tighten it up. And this is just a fun little accessory. I mean, I bought it because I could and I liked it. So when this thing is tight, what do you do with the Allen key? Well, I thought it would be a good idea to have a rare earth magnet right back here. You can place it back there and not lose it, always know where it is. And this little stop here, I think it's going to be handy in the shop for the type of work that I do. I like the fact that it still stays rotating so that it can take on different shaped objects, but yet at the same time it's nice and solid in that T-track, and it'll be a perfect addition here. What I've also purchased and added to my drill press table is a couple of these hold downs. Now, you can make shop-made ones of these, and who knows, maybe I'll do that on the show one of these days. But for now, I've never had hold downs on my drill press, especially shop-made ones, and I thought, why not? So I bought them because I could, and that is the purpose for my middle tracks and as well for the outside tracks. I mean, if my fence isn't this far up and I need to clamp something out here, I now have the ability. So there we go. This is pretty much the end of our drill press table build. Just a little note on drilling inserts, guys. I'm not a fan of them, and I know that some drill presses have removable inserts that go in the center to back your project as you're drilling. That's not me. I might add one later on. I don't know, but I mean, I had one with my old drill press and I never used it. It just became useless to me, and I removed it, and then it left a hole there. So I would rather have the support, and if need be, if I'm doing multiple drilling where I need backer support, I usually have scrap that I put behind it, and that's just the way that I prefer to work. Nothing wrong with that. If that's the way that you do it, then do it. If you want yourself some removable inserts, then do the removable insert, whatever suits you. But for me, I prefer a flat table. So for those of you who are wondering, where's the insert? I don't like them. And there you have it. A drill press table. Guys, there's a lot of room for modification in a project like this, and you don't necessarily have to do exactly what I've done. Feel free to take it to the next level and do something different. Feel free to change it up 100% to suit your needs. If you'd like, you can just use this project as your baseline and then expand from there. This is made for a 12-inch bench top drill press, so obviously the sizes are a little smaller. And where this one is only 24 inches wide and 14 inches deep, my old one for the floor model was much thicker, much wider, and much deeper. Will that affect my workflow? Probably not, as I have the ability to adjust for whatever it is that I'm working on. Now let's talk about the accessories, guys. You've got this stop block. You don't need a fancy one like this. I bought it because I could. And all you need for this is, again, another little shop knob with a 1/4 bolt, one of those T-nuts, and you can make your own stop block for anywhere sliding along that fence. As I said about the hold downs, well, you know what? Yeah, again, I have store-bought ones because I could. That doesn't mean that you can't make your own and make your own shop-made ones. And as I said, maybe I'll do that for a future episode of the show just for fun. Guys, this project has been an absolute blast. I love doing things like this, the jigs, the tables, all this stuff. I really enjoy that kind of work because there's a certain amount of it's got a technical aspect to it where you have to make sure that things are right and things are square and things all align, because if they don't, you're going to have problems down the road. And making a drill press table is no different than making a jig or a fixture, in that every mistake or every imperfection that you make along the way gets transferred onto your future work and your future projects. So you want to be extremely careful and be as accurate as you possibly can. Guys, I just want to point out there is a little more to this build, but that's a different show. And it's going to be next week, and that will be a drill press table modification that I'm going to add to this. But for this basic drill press table, this is all there is to it. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in again this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell to get the notifications on future episodes of the show. And I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another woodworking video.
Well, in order to start with our fence build, our fence? It is cold in the shop this morning, boys. -1. Okay. See how I suffer for you people? Here we go. You're welcome.